Hi, welcome to Bake to the Future, the show where we examine what is happening in the baking industry with a future-focused lens. I'm Haley Blumenreich.
And I'm Katie Joel.
Some listeners may or may not know that 2022 is ABA's 125th anniversary.
And it's a big year for ABA, and we're celebrating in a number of ways throughout the year. Our convention is a celebration of the industry, past, present, and future, aptly named Celebrate Bakery.
And we're continuing the celebration all year long with this special podcast, a timeline outlining ABA's history on our website. We're celebrating at IBIE and in September, and more.
And today we're taking you, our listeners, back in time to learn a little bit more about the history of ABA. You don't get to 125 years of existence by sitting around twiddling your thumbs. Since the late 1800s, baking companies have relied on ABA for everything from the latest regulatory guidance, consumer trends reports, and to connect with their peers.
We will get into all of that and more by hearing from two longtime ABA leaders who you've also heard on the podcast before, President and CEO Robb MacKie, and Senior Vice President of Government Relations and Public Affairs and Corporate Secretary Lee Sanders. In 1897, the first National Convention of the Master Bakers was held, and the Association of Master Bakers, which was later renamed the American Bakers Association, was formed. Here's Robb MacKie.
So ABA was founded in 1897, 125 years ago. And it's really interesting because at the time, the industry was dealing with a lot of consumer confusion and a lot of, concern amongst consumers about what was going into the product, how the products were sold. And so the industry got together to address those issues in a common way.
In 1916, ABA was incorporated in Chicago, with most members coming from Pennsylvania, Ohio, and New York. Here's Lee Sanders.
We have a rich history of representing the wholesale bakers and their suppliers.
Today, there are more than 300 ABA member companies from across the United States and the world. Interestingly, 90% of ABA's members are small to medium-sized bakers, and they make a wide variety of baked goods.
And so even though they're fierce competitors, when they come to the ABA table, they roll up their sleeves, they think about policies and building consensus for the entire industry.
We really feel like not only are we an extension of their company, but we're an extension of the family. Over our history, we've had to be involved in a number of challenges, economic challenges, world wars, all kinds of different global strife that's going on. And I just think it's absolutely amazing that the industry continues to desire to come together, to solve these problems in a common way, and really also to look for opportunity.
That's what makes us so effective, is that we know that we have our members behind us, and that all of the positions, all the efforts that we pursue on their behalf, we've got their full support, and that makes it so special.
Nutrition and fortification of baked goods was an important part of ABA's work in the 1930s and 40s. When high schoolers couldn't pass their physical exams, the enrichment standards for baked goods provided a way to improve nutrition.
I think another important moment for the industry was in the 40s when the U.S. was going off to World War II, and we realized we had a significant malnutrition issue with our soldiers and sailors. And so USDA asked the bakers and the millers to fortify the wheat flour with some of the basic vitamins that we take for granted today. And that was a really important partnership, obviously for our soldiers and sailors, but really for the entire country and the health of the country ever since.
Fast forwarding a few decades, ABA was instrumental in working with FDA to add folic acid to enriched bread in the late 1990s. Folic acid is pivotal in preventing neural birth defects in infants and was particularly inexpensive way for pregnant women to get necessary nutrients.
Not long after, in the early 2000s, the CDC said folic acid enrichment was one of the most outstanding U.S. public health achievements in the first decade of the 21st century, as it lowered neural tube defects by 36% in American infants.
The nutrition facts label was established right before I started with ABA. So the implementation of that happened in 1997. And at that time, we got some additional time for the bakers to implement because there were packaging shortages at that time. The Food Safety and Modernization Act, FSMA, was a real game changer for the industry. There was so much for our industry to learn, be prepared for. They always had food safety and their employee safety as a number one priority, but we had to educate them on the new requirements that were out there.
So ABA has changed in a number of ways over the years. Probably the most dramatic would be we were based in Chicago until the 1970s. And then we had the grain embargo, which the leadership of ABA made the very wise decision that they needed to be in Washington where the action was and all of the important decisions impacting the industry were being made.
Since I joined ABA in 1993, there have been a lot of changes in the industry. We've seen an added diversity of the types of products, types of companies that are ABA's members. I'd also say that, the diversity of our members has increased since we merged with the Biscuit and Cracker Manufacturers Association.
But the more things change, the more meaningful long-term partnerships become. You may or may not be surprised to know that many baking industry organizations in the U.S. have been around for around a century or more. In the first 25 years of the 1900s, as my kids call it, so many well-known baking industry groups and events got their start. The Biscuit and Cracker Manufacturers Association, Sosland Publishing, the Baking Equipment Manufacturers and Allies, known as BEMA, the Retail Bakers of America, and the Allied Trades of the Baking Industry, and the American Society of Baking. And last but not least, the Baking Expo, now known as the International Baking Industry Exposition, or IBIE.
Now co-owned by ABA and BEMA, and supported by the Retail Bakers of America, IBIE welcomes more than 20,000 attendees from around the globe to the Las Vegas Convention Center every 3 years. And we're so excited to see everyone again this September of 2022. In our much more recent history, ABA leads and partners with other organizations in the food manufacturing sector. Here's Lee Sanders.
There's been a lot of work done, and there was the establishment of the Grain Foods Foundation. An additional arm for promotion, which is terrific. And so working in tandem with them for the dietary guidelines throughout the years, establishment of the grain chain with the different grain organizations, and having that unity and having ABA as the leader of those groups was really significant. And now with the Food and Beverage Issue Alliance, where ABA is leading over 50 trade associations on key dialogues with FDA officials on a quarterly basis on both nutrition and food safety issues, is really significant.
In 2016, ABA merged with the Biscuit and Cracker Manufacturers Association. With the merger, we became better together, as we like to say, with a more expansive and diversified membership and the tremendous growth of the established and respected educational training course catalog with the Bakers Manufacturing Academy. I've personally taken the Cookie and Cracker entry-level training course and learned a lot. The course options are mostly online, and our offline and in-person training includes the Cookie and Cracker Manufacturing course and frontline leadership training with Hearthside University. The Academy has technical training for all types of products, and the courses are in several languages too. I stuck to the English one personally, but they come in also Spanish and Portuguese, and topics can range from beginner training to specialized courses.
I think one of the other great things about working at ABA is this incredible team that we have assembled, not just today, but going back historically. You think about the dedicated folks that really put the industry first, and the opportunity to really work with this amazing team. It just gets you out of bed in the morning. It puts a bounce in your step, knowing that we're all working together to help this incredible industry. I think coming up on the 125th anniversary is an amazing accomplishment.
I agree. It is an amazing accomplishment, and I'm so glad to be a part of it. And I'm excited to keep celebrating throughout the year. And if you want to see a shorter 2-minute version of our history with images and historic ABA documents and photos, as well as a timeline of ABA and the baking industry's history, go to AmericanBakers.org.
Let us know what you thought of the show by emailing hello@AmericanBakers.org. We love hearing from you. Or leave us a voicemail at baketothefuture.org. And don't forget to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts: Apple, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Amazon Music, or Ghana.